Hey guys, it is Sabo here, and I am back with our first ever virtual edition of Sports Talk with Sabo. With the COVID 19 situation continuing to change and evolve, I have adapted to the new normal, working out of a home studio and finding different ways to produce fresh content and conduct in depth interviews. This is a first for Sports Talk with Sabo, and I can't think of any better person to join me than my special guest today. He has faced a mountain of adversity in his life and career. He has overcome countless professional obstacles and personal challenges, and is someone who has persevered through it all to reach the pinnacle of success. Today, I welcome Rich Hill, the newest member of the Minnesota Twins pitching staff and the oldest starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. So without any further ado, let's get this show started. Rich, thank you for joining me. Let's start back at the beginning where it all began. You were born in Milton, Massachusetts, the youngest of four boys, all of whom were excellent athletes. Your oldest brother, Lloyd, played Division III college baseball, and your next oldest brother, Larry, played Division I at Boston College. They started teaching you the game at a young age, but they were teaching you to play as a right-hander. It was your brother John, who wasn't a baseball player himself, but rather an exceptional gymnast, who observed that you appeared to be more of a natural lefty. Tell me a bit about your childhood, growing up in Milton, and what impact your family had on your development as a baseball player.
Yeah, well, Michael, thanks for having me on the show. This is great to be on. Growing up in Milton was, a small town. It's about 40,000 residents in the town of Milton,
Wow.
and just grew up, with my three brothers and my sister, and they were older than I was. I kind of came a little bit behind them, but they were always competing at sports and especially in baseball. And I got to go to a lot of my brother's baseball games, and I was the bat boy for many of those games, and really just learned the sport through watching them at an early age when I was very young, and then started getting into the little league programs here in the town of Milton. Played t-ball, played coach pitch, and then played little league starting right around 9 years old, I believe, and then 9, 10, 11, 12 played those 4 years of little league, and then right into Babe Ruth, and into high school, and then after that was college and then professional. But just really the whole right-handed to the left-handed thing. I think that was when I was around 5 years old. So I don't have a very vivid memory of that. But my brother kept putting the ball in my left hand and kept putting it in my left hand, and kind of forcing me to use that more. And that's how everything else I pretty much do right-handed though. If I kick a football or kick a soccer ball, it's my right foot. If I write, that's with my right hand. So.
Yeah, that's different. But I mean, I guess your brothers taught you well because you were drafted on three separate occasions.
Mm-hmm.
After your senior year in 1999, the Cincinnati Reds took you in the 36th round, but you instead chose to attend college and play baseball at the University of Michigan. What drove your decision to forego professional baseball at that time to play for the Wolverines?
Well, I think it was taking the tour on campus and the just the recruiting trip there, and being able to see how great the campus was and the baseball program and just the university as a whole. It was really tough to walk away from that and start a professional career. And I think at that time I wasn't ready for professional baseball. My body, I wasn't strong enough, physically or even mentally to go live on my own and start your career really at 18, 19 years old is very difficult to do. So I was, really fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to go to the University of Michigan and, have some great years there and meet some great people, some really good coaches. And, after that, made the decision to end up signing.
Yeah. So, in after your University of Michigan, after you went there, you had another great opportunity. In 2001, you were drafted by the Angels, but you chose to return to Michigan. It was the following year when you were drafted by the Cubs that you made your decision to start your career as a professional. What was this moment like for you?
Yeah, it was, 2001 was difficult because that was very tough. I remember being down in Cape Cod playing for the Chatham A's and talking with our manager of the Chatham A's and just kind of bouncing ideas, back and forth. Should I sign? Shouldn't I sign? It was another difficult. That was a much harder choice than coming out of high school because I'd had, a couple successful years at Michigan and I'd been throwing the ball really well that summer. For some reason, I just felt that there was more to do at Michigan. So I decided to go back and finish one more year and get one more year closer to my degree too. That's something that, hopefully, when all this ends and baseball is over and my career is over, playing, that I can go back and finish my degree and only, I think I have like 30 credits left, and that was something that was really important to me to get closer to that degree, and also come back and have an opportunity to win, Big Ten championship with the team that we had at Michigan. Unfortunately, we didn't do that. So after that year, after my junior year, I was drafted by the Cubs, like you said, and was able to take the opportunity. It was then the time was right, to go and sign. And I was old when I signed. I mean, I believe it was 22
Wow.
when I started my minor league career. So now you see a lot of guys getting into the big leagues at 22, 23 years old. I was 22 when I signed.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the right time for me, and I was glad that I signed when I did.
hmm So let's take it back to the minor leagues once for one final time, and that's because I learned an interesting fact about your minor league career. Not only did you win the MVP in the AAA All-Star Game, but for the Bull Durham fans out there, you also have a Crash Davis type honor, having won a ring at every stop you made throughout your minor league career. Tell me about your experiences in the minor leagues.
Yeah, I think at first it's kind of a little bit of a culture shock because anytime you make a move or you go to different parts of the country or the world, you have to get used to the culture that you're immersing yourself in, and that was certainly the case with professional baseball. You had guys from all over the world. Now it was like you were one of the best in the country. Now go and play with the organization, which has some of the best players in the world. Now you have to put yourself in that organization
Mhm.
and kind of see where you stack up and see how. That was kind of the beginning of the journey professionally, obviously, and I remember the first couple days just watching guys throw bullpens, and I was just amazed at how hard everybody was throwing and how
Yeah.
quick everybody's hands were turning a double play, how easy it was. The ball was coming off guys' bats, and just everything was just another level. That was just a little bit more, than college, and you could see it in some other guys where it was, that just a little bit more was even that much better, and then that much better. So you have a lot of tiers and ranks of power and speed, and the ability that each player had and what made them special and why we were all together in the same in the same organization.
Yeah. So your professional career has been similar to a roller coaster ride, filled with so many ups and downs. Your major league debut in 2005 had various levels of success over the next several years. Prior to signing with the Twins, you played for 9 different teams and have battled some pretty serious injuries throughout your career. In 2015, you were released by the Washington Nationals. And after not receiving any offers, you wound up playing for the Long Island Ducks in the Atlantic League. Talk to me about that period of your career and the remarkable series of events that took you from almost being out of baseball completely to signing a one-year, multi-million-dollar contract with your hometown team, the Boston Red Sox, and then eventually a much larger, multi-year, $48 million deal with the Dodgers.
Yeah, I think that summer in 2015 was really unique in a lot of cases. Kind of like the one part of the story, or the beginning of it, is my wife and I and our son Bryce, my wife Caitlin, and I, we decided to leave the Nationals organization just because we didn't think it was a great fit for an opportunity to get to the big leagues at that time. And we had taken an out prior to that back in 2010, I believe. Now, when you have an out in your contract, it gives the player the opportunity to either opt in for the rest of the year or opt out and go possibly find another team to play with. So we decided to opt out, and we were driving home in 2015. The first time we did it was very difficult because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if another team is going to call, or that could be it. But both in 2010 and 2015, I knew that I had been throwing the ball pretty well, and that I had a lot more to give. And on the way home, we didn't get any. There were no phone calls. On the way home in 2011, there was a phone call from Boston, actually, and told, they said, "Hey, would you be willing to go to Pawtucket and pitch out of the bullpen in Pawtucket?" And later on that year, I got called up in Boston. 2015, that same situation didn't necessarily happen. The phone call didn't come until, much later, until after I had pitched 2 games in independent ball with the Long Island Ducks. A quick part of that story is that we bought a house across the street from an old Little League field, not an old Little League, old house across the street from a Little League field, and we were renovating it. And across the street was Mike Hazing, who was, at the time, the Boston Red Sox general manager, and now he's with the Arizona Diamondbacks. And I saw him across the street, and he was with his son and his son's friend. They were getting ready to play a Little League game that day. And I walked over, and he said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" I was asking him the same thing, and we started talking, and he said, because it was the middle of July. This is the middle of July at this time. So we should be playing baseball. We should be out somewhere with a team. And we started talking, and he was going to have somebody, come by and take a look at me throw off the mound. And the guy who came is with him in Arizona right now. His name's Jared Porter. And he came and watched me throw, and he made a suggestion. He said, "Well, since I was throwing sidearm at the time, in 2015, I thought I was going to continue to still be in the bullpen, and that was going to be, how my career was going to go." And he made a suggestion to move to the right-hand side of the rubber. And that's where I had pitched prior to going into the bullpen. I was throwing from the right-hand side of the rubber as a starter. And the reason why he made that suggestion is because, the increased amount of strikes, the more times you'd be in the strike zone from the right-hand side of the rubber is more beneficial. So I did that. I threw for him, and he said that, he'd be in touch over the weekend or maybe early on next week. This was like a Thursday or Friday. He said he'd call me maybe over the weekend or Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Well, when he called back, he said, we really don't have any room right now. And your best opportunity would be to go to independent ball and start for, a team, or maybe not start, but just go pitch for that team, and we can actually see you compete. And give us a better idea of if we can sign you or not. So from that, the next week kind of went through, and the days passed by, but I was still playing catch with the Legion team that I was a part of when I was younger here in Milton. And that led into, me starting to throw back over the top. So I started throwing overhand again, and I started to feel really good. The reason why I dropped down is because I had shoulder surgery in 2009, which led to getting back into starting with the St. Louis Cardinals in 2010 in Memphis and AAA.
Yeah.
But I got bumped out of the rotation and put in the bullpen. And I thought that, since my shoulder didn't feel that great every single day coming out of the bullpen, I had to make a switch for kind of, survival. And I could throw from the side and throw effectively and throw well. So that's why I did that. But up till 2015, that summer in July, I started throwing overhand, and I felt really good, and it felt like my shoulder had healed, and I felt like, finally everything was strong and ready to be able to throw over the top. And then I decided to, throw a couple bullpens over the top. I woke up the next morning, I felt great. I went to, ended up signing with Long Island, made 2 starts.
Wow.
Went to, signed by the Red Sox. Went to Pawtucket, made 4 or 5 starts in Pawtucket, and then made 4 starts in September in Boston. And the only reason why I made 4 starts in September is, yes, I did pitch very well in AAA, and I think it was like September 4th or 5th, they had already made call-ups, and I was at peace with it. I felt that I had thrown really well and put myself in a good position for 2016. But Stephen Wright, who was a pitcher for the Red Sox at the time, a knuckleballer, he got hit in the head during batting practice running. So the ball hit him in the head, and he got a concussion from it, and that's how I got called up.
Wow. So actually, last summer I was walking through the Baseball Hall of Fame, and there, sitting in the Dodgers locker display, I stumbled upon a ball that at first caught my attention because of the date of the plaque. August 23rd, my dad's birthday. But as I read more closely, I noticed that it was a ball thrown by you on a historic day in Pittsburgh. For a moment, let's go back to August 23rd, 2017. You were pitching arguably the best game in your career. You were moments away from being the 24th pitcher in baseball history to have a perfect game, only to see it slip away when your teammate Logan Forsythe made a fielding error on a tough hop at third base. You retired the next 3 batters and lost the game on the 4th pitch of the 10th inning on a walk-off home run by Josh Harrison. What were your emotions like heading into the 9th inning, and what is it like to come that close to making baseball history, only to have it dashed in such a dramatic fashion? Is it hard to get over something like that?
Michael, I felt terrible for Logan because, we put so much time and effort into this game and to our craft. And I told him, just don't worry about it. You got to move on. We got to move on. Next pitch. That's how I, operate when I'm out there on the mound. So, things like that happen. And I felt terrible for Logan, and he's a great friend. And, the last inning when I went out there in the 10th inning, I gave up a home run to Josh Harrison, and that ended the game. And, that was kind of, that was it. I really haven't sat back and thought about it because I just kind of moved forward to the next, you're always thinking about the next day. And, after that outing is over, I can shift my focus into my next outing. And I think that's why I've been successful, even later on in my career, is because I've done such a good job of just focusing in on the task at hand, one pitch at a time mentality, and focusing in on the moment. And those moments, that's why I think we have to sit back, and sometimes, that's why we don't really enjoy it until after it's over, because when you're in it, you're experiencing it and just doing everything you can to be in that situation and in that moment and be as natural as you can, instead of trying to, hold it forever, which we can't. So that is, something that was a great game, great called game by Austin Barnes, who was behind the dish. And, I just came up short on that one.
Yeah, I think you're a really great teammate for forgiving Logan, just letting it go. I think that's a really great thing to have, a really great quality. So I actually want to go over some interesting stats from that game. It was the first game in MLB history that a perfect game was lost in the 9th inning on an error. And you are the only pitcher in Major League history to take a loss while finishing with a stat line of 1 hit, 0 walks, and at least 10 strikeouts.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was a great game, and like I said, unfortunately, one pitch, and obviously they had a good lineup. They had a good team that year, and we had a great team that year as well. So that was something that obviously I will remember. Looking forward to some really great moments this year if and when we play with the Twins. So I think that's going to be something that's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, so actually in 2018, you were the Game 4 starter in the World Series against the Red Sox. You pitched brilliantly for 6 innings, giving up just one hit over 91 pitches. You seemed to be cruising when manager Dave Roberts inexplicably decides to take you out of the game. As we now know, the game quickly got out of hand after that, and the Red Sox went on to win the game and then the World Series. A lot of people feel that the decision to take you out of the game was the final turning point in the series. President Trump even tweeted about it. Tell me about that game and what your feelings were being taken out when you were.
Yeah, I mean, I threw the ball really well that game, and definitely felt great. I think that obviously the decisions are made for a reason, and for the betterment of the team. So I think that our job as a player is to go out there and give everything that we have while we have the opportunity, when we're out there in the field. And when it's time to make a change or a switch, that's the decision of other the managers and other coaches. So unfortunately we ended up losing that World Series, and I think that's something that was great to be a part of for 2 years, 2017 and then in 2018. But coming up short was definitely a tough to swallow 2 years in a row. And then in 2019, getting bumped by the eventual World Series champs, the Nationals, was something that was tough last year. But it was great teams in LA, and just some really really great memories.
Yeah. So earlier this year, we learned of a sign stealing scandal involving the Astros in 2017 and the Red Sox in 2018. As a member of the National League champion Dodgers, you and your teammates fell victim to these ball clubs in the World Series in back to back years. Managers and executives lost their jobs and faced suspensions. Fines were assessed to the ball clubs, but players were spared from any punishment for their involvement. I'm curious as to your feelings about what transpired, especially as a pitcher on the other side of the scandal. And do you think the penalties assessed were fair? How do you think the sign stealing stacks up compared to other baseball scandals from the past, like the use of performance enhancing drugs or gambling on games?
Well, it's a great question. I think obviously when you put as much effort and work into your craft as each and every one of us has on those two teams, when stuff like this starts to come out, and it's very disheartening, and it's hard to especially in 17. I don't really know what the evidence was from 18, but I do know that there is very very strong evidence in 2017 that something was going on in the playoffs and in the World Series. Do I feel like the penalties were harsh enough? I mean, we can't go back and play the games, unfortunately, and I really think that we had the better team, because look, we were playing. We thought we were playing on an even playing field, and if we were going to go to Vegas and play blackjack, and they were going to tell you what card was going to come out next, I think we'd do all right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing as a hitter, knowing what's coming at that level. It's basically like putting the ball in the tee for guys. And I think, it's something that rippled through baseball and will continue to be a mark in that 2017 year, where, if I was on that team and part of it, I don't know if I'd even want to keep my ring, because it's just something that you feel like you didn't earn, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's really the tough part for all the guys, because I know what it felt like being in that locker room after that Game 7 loss. I mean, even to go to 7 games with a team that, knew what pitches were coming is actually pretty incredible at that level when you think about it at the highest level. And again, I don't know. I haven't really, you're kind of the first person to ask me about it.
I try.
And yeah. So I feel that history will continue to, tell a story of that year, and hopefully remember that Dodger team is one of the best teams of all time, because we certainly felt like we had an incredible team, and we won a whole bunch of games that year. We had a tough September, but we when you think about it, we could have possibly have won 120 games that year, and I think with how everything worked out, it is unfortunate the way it ended, but I think baseball is going to be better off moving forward.
Yeah. So what do you think baseball can do to ensure the integrity of the game is maintained in the future so something like this doesn't happen again?
Yeah, I think, obviously they've taken measures right now to, monitor, put officials in each locker room and monitor the video rooms, making sure guys are not using any kind of technology to their advantage. And that's the other thing. There's certain cat and mouse games that might go on throughout baseball that have gone on for 100 years. But when you're talking about using real-time technology and telling the hitter what is coming, it's not really the big thing is that I don't have a problem as a pitcher if a guy's relaying the sign from second base to the hitter. If they can pick my signs, and that's on me and the catcher, or it's really on me to change the signs up. But when you can actually find out what pitch is coming in real time, that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And especially again, like I said, at that level, those are the best of the best. And I know MLB is doing everything that they can right now to reinsure the integrity and make sure that something like this doesn't pop up again.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of scandals, I'm curious as to where you stand on the Hall of Fame merit of players who were implicated in previous scandals. Guys like Pete Rose, Barry Bonds, and Roger Clemens. Do you think any of them belong in the Hall of Fame?
That's a really great question. I think when you take in the context of the time, and it's all, it's all the decade and what was going on. And I'm not saying that it was right at all. But I also, from what I know and the knowledge that I have, is that, it was not illegal in Major League Baseball at the time with steroids. And, I'm kind of on the fence, I guess, if you want to say if they should get in or not. I mean, I think in the beginning, I was firmly against it, but maybe I haven't softened a whole lot on that. I just feel that the one thing is I would have liked to have seen how good those guys could have been without PEDs, and that's why we put in the testing that we have now, so the game is clean, and that if guys are willing to go out there and put themselves in that position to test positive, then the game can be better off because of it. And we've certainly done a great job of cleaning up the game and getting, performance enhanced drugs out of it. So, with that, and the other side of it is that there are a lot of guys that lost opportunities to play in the big leagues because of guys that decided to take PEDs. Now they decided not to take PEDs. Does that make them, is that their fault because they didn't get a chance to play in the big leagues? I would say no, it's not. It's just, and that's the thing. I've had many coaches who decided not to. Back in the maybe the late 80s or through the 90s, they decided not to take PEDs, and they played their careers, and some got shots, some didn't, to play in the big leagues. So it's I don't know. Because I think they would have been great players without it. Would they have had as long a careers with it without it? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I guess, as it stands right now, I'd say no. I would say no. The more I, go back and forth. These are great questions. I haven't even really thought about these, but, and Pete Rose, I don't know how to look at that either. I mean, it was like there's one rule at that time in the book, don't bet on baseball, and, and he did. So, that was like the one rule, and that you could be banned for life, like at that time. And I'm a little bit. I think my viewpoint is a little different on that one. I think he's done his. I think he's paid his, time, and probably deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he has the most hits of all time. Not saying now you're going to compare that to, the steroid scandal or how that's going to, stack up with other scandals in baseball. Or, if you look at Joe Jackson, even all the way back to Joe Jackson, you hear stories of him unable to be able to read and write. So there's obviously that in case as well for me. If Pete Rose gets in, then you got to let Joe Jackson in. So there's a lot of guys that hopefully, there's not, there's not a real big moral compass, I guess, to get into the Hall of Fame. You just, I suppose you have to be a great baseball player, and certainly people make mistakes and tough choices in their life, and I think a lot of the guys that have played in those eras in the 90s and 80s, and probably even before that, who knows how long steroids have been around in baseball, but I think those guys are looking back at it, and I think a lot of them are doing great things now in the game. You look at Mark McGwire, even Barry Bonds get back into coaching, and so we'll see. Time will tell.
Yeah. All right, well, I think this is a good place to take a break and end part 1 of our interview. Stay tuned for part 2 of Sports Talk with Sabo featuring Rich Hill. Until then, peace out, Sabonators.